Alright, now we're going to finish up the first derivative. This is called the first derivative test, relative mins and maxes. And we've kind of already talked about this a little bit. First derivative test, if f prime changes from positive to negative, meaning my slopes are going up, then down, that's a positive slope, the negative slope, then we have a maximum. Vice versa, if f prime is going from negative to positive, that means my slopes are going down, negative slope, then up, positive slope, that means I have a minimum. Again, if you want to find the y value for the min and max, just plug your x back into the original equation. Number 1, the function defined by f of x is equal to x to the third minus 3x squared for all real numbers has a relative minimum x equals where, and we're going to justify it. So first thing we're going to do is take our derivative. And this will be 3x squared minus 6x. And we're going to set that equal to 0. And I'm going to factor out my greatest common factor, which is 3x, which leaves me with x minus 2. So 3x is equal to 0, and x minus 2 is equal to 0. That means x is 0, and x is 2. So these are my critical values. So I need to figure out, using a sign chart, is my function going to have a maximum minimum at 0 or 2? So let's set up our number line. And I have values where my x is 0 and 2. And we're going to be comparing our f prime. Down here are x's. Okay, and these are the values that make our f prime 0. And let's go ahead and list our factors. So we have 3x, that's one of our factors. And x minus 2 is the other. And so we're going to pick values to the left of 0. Let's say negative 1. Well, 3 times negative 1 is a negative number. It's negative 3. So this is going to be a negative. And so now we're going to plug in negative 1 into x minus 2. So negative 1 times x minus 2 is still a negative number. Now I'm going to choose a number between 0 and 2. So I would say 1. So 3 times 1 is 3. That's a positive number. And then I'm going to choose 1 again. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. That's a negative number. Finally, I'm going to choose a number bigger than 2, let's say 3. And so 3 times 3 is 9. That's a positive number. 3 minus 2 is 1. That's a positive number. And so now we're going to be tracking because we're multiplying. These are multiplied factors. So a negative times a negative is a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. A positive times a positive is a positive. And so we're trying to find where is our function have a maximum, meaning we're going from increasing to decreasing or positive to negative. Well, if I'm going from positive to negative, that occurs at 0. I'm going up. That's a positive slope goes up. A negative slope goes down. And you can see that a maximum occurs at 0. And you also, if you keep on going, you'll see a minimum occurs at 2. So this a relative maximum occurs at x equals 0. So the relative max occurs at x equals 0. And this is the justify that they're looking for because f prime goes from positive to negative. Number 2, find the relative max for f of x is equal to x squared minus 3 times ex. So you have to be careful because I have to use the product rule. So let's take our derivative. So f prime is equal to the derivative of the first, which is 2x, times the second, which is e to the x, added to the first, times the derivative of the second, which is e to the x. And I'm going to set that equal to 0. And right now, my best bet is to go ahead and factor out an e to the x. Notice how e to the x occurs on both sides of my plus sign. So I can factor that out, which is my greatest common factor right now. So I'm left with 2x plus plus x squared minus 3. I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite that in order. Alright, so let's go ahead and factor. This will be x plus 3, x minus 1. There's no way that e to the x can ever be 0, so I'm not worried about e to the x part. E to the x can't be 0 because it has a horizontal asymptote, so it never crosses, and it never has a y coordinate or an x-intercept where the y is 0. So the only thing we have to worry about is x plus 3 is 0, and x minus 1 is 0. And so x is negative 3, x is 1. And so we're going to come over here and do our sign chart again. I'll put in negative 3 and positive 1, and over here we'll list our factors. We have e to the x, that was one of our factors, x plus 3, and x minus 1. And again, we're going to pick values. These are my f prime that we're comparing, my x is on the bottom. These are the values that make my derivative 0. So let's pick a number to the left of negative 3. Let's say negative 4. Well, e to the negative 4 just means it's 1 over e to the 4th, which is a really small number, so that's positive. E to the x is always positive. Again, keep that negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1, so it'll be negative. Again, keeping that negative 4. Negative 4 minus 1 is a negative number, so that's also negative. Alright, let's find a number between negative 3 and 1. Let's say 0. That's easy. E to the 0 is 1, so that's a positive number. E to the 0 plus 3 is positive. 0 minus 1 is negative. And then finally, let's come over here, pick a number greater than 1. Let's say 2. E squared is going to be positive. 2 plus 3 is positive. 2 minus 1 is positive. So I have 2 negatives and a positive that makes a positive. I have 2 negatives and 1 positive that makes a negative. And then 3 positive makes a positive. And so we're trying to find a maximum. Again, maximum goes from positive to negative. So a positive slope goes up. A negative slope goes down, a positive slope goes up, and so we have a relative maximum at negative 3. So f has a relative max at we'll go ahead and put in the point. So negative 3, comma, plug in the original, which is going to be, let's see here, negative 3 squared is 9, 9 minus 3 is 6, so 6 e to the negative 3, we'll go ahead and write it like that. That'll be your y value, and this is because f prime goes from positive to negative. Alright, number 3, we're going to find the minimum. So again, we have a product rule. So f prime of x. So derivative of the first is 1 times ln x added to the first times the derivative of the second, which is 1 over x. So we have 0 is equal to ln of x plus, well, these guys are going to cancel to 1. And so if I subtract 1 from both sides, ln of x is equal to negative 1. Alright, let's raise this to get rid of the ln. Let's raise it to the e. So e to the 1 is equal to e to the ln of x. These will cancel. And so I have 1 over e is equal x. So that's our critical value. So let's go ahead and make our sign chart. So we have 1 over e. It's my 0. My factors are ln x plus 1. Alright, let's plug in a value less than 1 over e, which is approximately, I don't know, I think it's about 0.3 something. So let's say ln of 0.1. So on your calculator, do ln of 0.1. I think you get negative 2 something. And add it to 1. So negative 2 point something plus 1 gives me a negative number. And so a value greater than 1 over e 0.3 something, let's say 1, that's easier. Ln of 1 is 0. 0 plus 1 is a positive number, so my function is, my f prime is negative then positive, so it's decreasing then increasing. And so f of x has a minimum at x equals 1 over e, because f prime goes from negative to positive. Alright, number 4. Find the relative minimums and maximums for h of x if they exist from the table below. And so you want to look to see where does your function change sign. So I have a critical value, potentially. I have a critical value at negative 2. I have another critical value at 1. Please don't look at this guy just because there's a 0 there. That is something else. So do not use him. And so we're going to look to see on the other sides of our zeros. Well, I go from negative to negative. Well, there's no sign change, so that means there can't be any type of maximum or minimum there. However, over on the other 0, I go from a negative to a positive. And so if I'm going from negative, that's a negative slope, to a positive slope, that means I have a minimum. And so h of x has a local min at x is equal to 1. Again, you want to, here's your x value. X value is on the top because h prime is negative or less than 0, and then is greater than 0.